10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, we're rolling, and what is today's date? Do you know?
30th of November,
What year?
2002.
Okay. All right. So let's start with your heritage, your grandparents. What were their names? Do you remember? And what they do? Where they live?
John Dean was my mother's father in Westmeath, Moat, the town of Moat. Her mother's name I don't recollect. And my dad's people never had any contact with him, any of them, except his brother that came to the United States about 15 years ago with his wife. And a nice conversation and meeting with them. They stayed for, I think, 2 weeks. We went hither and there, cemeteries, what have you. And that's the last I saw them, and I guess he died shortly afterwards, going back to Ireland. And his wife also died, I think, maybe 3 years ago. So my dad has one brother over there now that I know of, who's rather up in years. And that's about the extent of the relatives that I know in either town.
What did your dad's parents do for a living?
I don't know how they subsisted in Mayo. It was a rather poor section. And I don't think my dad ever mentioned what they did. Probably some farming.
Mm-hmm. What kind of crops, like potatoes?
Probably potatoes mainly. I hadn't heard of anything else.
What about, all right, so as far as you know, back then they were farmers and...
Yeah, and they were in a really poor section of Ireland and Mayo. My dad used to say the sea was at the front door and the sea was at the back door.
Mm-hmm. So he lived in Mayo.
Yeah.
And what did he do? I mean, he was born when?
In 1902, December 25th.
And his name was Patrick Stephen?
Peter Stephen.
Peter Stephen, I'm sorry. Peter
Yeah,
Stephen.
yeah.
And he did what and what did he do as a child? I mean, did he work in Ireland at all? Or?
Never mentioned working there. I wonder what he did. He never brought it up. He came over here, I believe, when he was about 25 years old. And he never spoke, now that, the subject comes up, he never spoke about what he did in Ireland. He talked about school days. Other than that, I don't know, what industry did they have over there, other than maybe helping out on small farms that they might have had.
Was he a hellraiser? Or, I mean,
No. My dad was a very subdued character. Introverted, typical first child in the family. Mm-hmm. And a real solid citizen, I thought.
What was he built like?
He was probably about 5'9", long arms, large shoulders, kind of a stocky frame body.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I hear about Ireland, I hear about this big way station or something that's in the city square, the town square.
Oh yeah.
What's that about?
Well, that was in my mother's hometown.
Okay, that's your mom.
That's the weighing scales. I believe I've been there since the 17th century, maybe later. The history is a little hazy on that one. Where they had his tripod with the chain hanging down in the middle of it, and the metal basket with the, I don't know if there was a dial indicator or various weights they added till they balanced out. And that had been in the Dean family, as somebody else had owned it previously, then it fell to the Dean family. And they had a little industry going on there in the center of the town, and as far as I know, the scale is still up.
Mm-hmm. So your mother's name was Mary Frances Dean?
Yeah.
And when was she born?
August 15th, 1907.
And her parents' name? Did you already mention that?
Our mother's name, I'm not sure of. Father's name was John Dean.
What, they were farmers too?
Yeah, I think it was mainly in the cattle brokerage.
Cattle brokerage?
Yeah. And They owned a lot of property in that area, and it's still in my mother's brother's hands.
So you think that the Barretts and the Deans were a little more financially...
Oh yeah, because my mother was one from what they call the Midlands, where it was a big-time cattle territory. No, I think our family was rather well off throughout the years.
How did they meet?
How did they meet, my mother and father?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's in the States, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's get to that.
Yeah, well, I believe it was at, the general gathering spot for the early arrivals was at the dancing halls, mainly on the south side. I suspect that's where they met, because my mother used to go up there when she was a kid. Mm-hmm. Shortly after she arrived there, she was up there with her girlfriends, it all had the meeting place, it's a great place to meet people from your home country.
How did your dad end up coming to the United States? What was that? What was behind that? How did he end
Just to get away from the misery of Ireland. There's not that much going on, and I assume it held no promise for him, not in that town anyway. Mm-hmm. And many of them were leaving.
You have relatives in the States?
All of them did. They had to act as their sponsors. Mm-hmm. You had to have a sponsor to get over here with a guarantee of a job, and you would not be a hardship to the government.
Who was his sponsor and what job?
My Uncle Frank Barrett brought my dad over, and a slew of others also. Mm-hmm. He spoke up for them, got them jobs with the surface lines, streetcars.
How do you get a job for somebody when they're not even physically in the country?
Well, they had a promise of a job, let me put it like that, Mm-hmm. And there's an awful lot of Irish in the streetcar thing in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they had no problems finding work.
How did Frank get over here?
Good one. I don't know. Oh, who spoke up for him? I have no idea who spoke up for him. There was Catherine Kane, who was his niece, had relatives over here, and I suspect in the early days one of the Canes probably spoke up for Uncle Frankie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And my Aunt Mary, who he married later on, and she was Mary Kane, mm-hmm. was her name. Mm-hmm.
So do you know anything about your dad's passage across the ocean?
No.
Did he ever tell you about it?
Never spoke of it.
You don't even know what ship he was on?
No.
What year was it?
It was somewhere in the mid-20s, I'm not certain.
25, maybe?
I wonder if there's a date up there. I guess not. Ellis Island.
Yeah. Now, so he went through Ellis Island.
Oh, yeah.
And then he took the train to Chicago, probably.
Yeah, most likely.
You know a little bit more about Grandma, because she talked about that. Mm-hmm. Your mother talked about coming here on a boat.
Yeah.
Tell me about what she told you about that experience.
She never elaborated on that either. As far as sickness or deprivation, she never got into it.
Did she, you know what ship it was?
Was it the Leviathan or some? That seems to come to mind. It's not written down anywhere that I know of, unless maybe of her passport,
Mauritania,
which could be that one too, but it was something that ended with an IA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the White Star, not White Star, but the other one, Cunard.
Yeah.
They ended with IA, I think.
Okay.
And White
I'm
Star
not certain about that one.
So she never told you, I mean, she obviously shared some steerage or some more modest quarters with some other women.
Yeah, she probably came over in steerage with the rest of them. And initially she landed in New York. Mm-hmm. She stayed there for a year, from what I gather.
A year?
Yeah.
She do for a year?
There, some priest met her over there. Somebody spoke up for her, and she, I guess, originally slated to go to New York. Mm-hmm. Relatives there, I'm sure, too. And she stayed for a year, and her mother wanted her to come back home. So she went back. And she stayed for I don't know how long, and then left again and came to Chicago.
Her mother wanted to go back to Ireland?
Mm-hmm.
So she made the trip twice?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So she came here in like 24 or 5.
She was 17 and 5, 22 years old.
She went back to Ireland, didn't like it again, and decided to leave again.
Yeah, most people, saw no promise in that area for them. They just wanted to get away from it to a land of opportunities.
So her reasons were very similar to your dad.
Oh yeah, sure.
So she came back the second time. She lands in New York.
First time New York, second time Chicago.
So she goes to Chicago and probably lives with a sponsoring family.
Yeah. She has relatives on the south side. I think their name is Fox. And her mother's maiden name was Fox. So she went with her mother's relatives on the south side, I'm sure, in the early stages.
And you said earlier they met each other at an Irish dance somewhere.
From what I gather, yeah.
That's all you know about it?
Yeah, right. My father was not very talkative. My mother wasn't either, for that matter, unless you pressed her about certain things.
So what was he doing when he first came over here? Working for whatever the predecessor was?
He worked for a hall printing company in the early days on Diversity and Cicero. Press boy, whatever, he might have been doing. Apprentice.
The Irish typically got the grunt jobs no one else.
Oh yeah, sure. That was a pecking order in those days. And
Chinese.
Yeah, right. And then he went to work for the motor coach on Austin Blvd, driving a gas bus. I remember he had a real sharp uniform with the leather puttee legs and all that. And then they had a huge strike, and a lot of guys lost their jobs on account of it. And then he went to work for the Chicago surface lines with the streetcars on rails, electrified.
Where's he living about this time? They get married, obviously, about what year? Late 20s.
Yeah, I think 29, 1929. And then they lived on 3500 Congress Street by Homan Avenue, Sears there, Congress and Homan Avenue.
Apartment?
Yeah. And they stayed there till I was 6 years old. Then he bought a house at Ohio and Laverne. 1936, I think it was. And they stayed there, until my father died. And my mom stayed on for a while.
What did it? All right, so he got laid off during the strike, which is this in the Depression or before the Depression?
I think it was very close to the Depression. I'm not sure of the dates. Of course, at that time I've been paying attention to dates anyway. I still don't, to a certain degree. He got a job with the surface lines, and then he opened up a tavern on North Avenue, 1935-ish.
What was the name of it?
Barrett's Tavern.
What was the address, do you remember?
5847 West North Avenue.
What's there now?
North and Mayfield. There was a Greek athletic club, and I don't know what's there now. It was kind of an Irish area out there, a lot of two flats and what have you, residential area.
Now your memories begin about there during the restaurant years when you were going to a restaurant while he was trying to run the thing, your mother was involved?
Oh, the tavern.
Tavern, yeah.
Yeah. They used to send me up from Ohio and Laverne once in a while with a money pinned inside my shirt pocket to pay the whiskey driver or whatever. Yeah, I used to go up there fairly often. And my Uncle Johnny lived upstairs.
He lived upstairs on Laverne?
No, on North Avenue.
He lived upstairs of the tavern?
Of the tavern, all right.
So there was an apartment upstairs?
There was 2 apartments up there. And my Uncle Johnny also owned a tavern at North and Long Avenue by a Collins Funeral Home at that same time.
Really? So they were like kind of competitors almost?
No, Lord, no. That was quite a distance down there.
Yeah.
John Barrett's Rendezvous was the name of the place.
I didn't know that.
I got such a kick out of it. He's so comical, full of life. Right next to Collins Funeral Parlor, which is an ideal location for a tavern, right next door. And he kept it, I don't know, late 40s, I think. And then my dad got out of the business, Johnny got out of the business, and Johnny went to work for the elevated lines. Lake Street L is what he worked on, kind of a maintenance worker.
So they both ended up going back to this transit
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
And by then it's Chicago Transit Lines, or is it CTA yet? Or?
It used to be Chicago Surface Lines. Okay. Then they went to CTA, Chicago Transit Authority. And the people used to write it, call it the CTA, crushed, tormented, and abused.
What was a typical work day like for him?
Oh, geez, he'd get up about 3 in the morning and start cooking. I couldn't understand the pots clattering at that time in the morning, wake me up. He'd have a steak and eggs, and I don't know what else. And I said, how can you do that at that first meal of the day? Oh, it's good for you, you know. Then he'd go out and I imagine he had to be to work at 5 o'clock, and then he'd come in about, I don't know, I believe 11, take a nap, go back out again about 1 in the afternoon, split shift. Then come in, 5:30, something like that. Have something to eat again, and then go to bed, get ready for the next day.
He did this for a year.
Oh, it was humdrum. I don't know how, it was so boring, I thought. But he used to have some great stories. He came in, thoroughly discussed it with the public.
Like?
People pulling shots on these trains, throwing stink bombs in there. All kinds of tricks that they pull. I mean, he'd get wild with the hobos on Madison Street. They'd be lying down on the train tracks when he was trying to get through. They'd have to get out and get them off the tracks.
He had to get them off?
Oh, yeah.
Must have hated that.
Yeah, he was very disgusted.
So he's driving one of those kind of trains where the pulleys.
Yeah.
You pull them down, put them on the wires over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Do you ever get in an accident?
Yeah. One time, I think he clipped the car. Our car pulled out. Oh, wait a minute, I know a great one. He's going down Madison Street with what they call the Green Hornet. It's a super streamlined train they come out with in the early 40s. You sit up front with 2 levers, right lever, left lever. One was for the brake, one for the acceleration. The acceleration was tremendous. You never had to say step to the rear of the aisle. You just hit the lever and they'd go be tumbling back there like 10 pins. Anyway, he's coming down Madison Street going west by Kedzie. And some guy come rolling out of the alley right in front of him by the Senate Theater with a new Buick convertible. He hit him, destroyed the car. He said the guy was outside the car rubbing the fender and crying. He said, I destroyed it.
It was the other guy's fault, obviously.
Yeah, oh yeah, he came out in front of him so quick. I think he was running from the police, actually. I didn't get the whole story. That's the only one that he ever told me about.
You never got robbed or anything?
No.
Was he handy around the house? I mean, did he build things? What was his hobby?
No.
He had no hobbies?
No hobbies. I tried to talk to him in life, taking up something, bowling, anything. He wasn't interested. Hobbies.
What do you enjoy to do besides eat and work and sleep?
He never got into anything mechanical, really. He just didn't seem to care for it. What did he do? Gee. He loved to talk to people, loved to talk politics, especially if there was a crowd over in old country, they'd really get into it. He had a concertina that I never saw him play, but he had it in the tavern. I guess he would play it and sing some Irish stuff occasionally. And what else? He just loved to shoot the breeze with his pals. Other than that, as far as working around the house, he didn't want a lawn. The lawn at the house looked like the Libyan desert, front and back. They went.
Everything you know about being handy, you taught yourself.
Yeah, right. No, he really didn't.
And he didn't get a car until fairly late in life either.
He had a car in the early 30s, Chevrolet two-door sedan. And he just left it in the garage after the tavern was sold. He never moved it again. It sat there till the late 40s.
He would just take the bus everywhere.
Yeah, he wouldn't bother. He didn't bother with a car.
So it doesn't sound like he was big on vacations either, going places.
He'd go up to Eagle River during the summer.
Where's that?
Oh, northern Wisconsin.
What'd he do?
Sit in a boat, do a little fishing, you know. He enjoyed that. I think my mother actually crowded him into it.
Did he read? I mean, did he have anything on wine?
I gather that he was rather well read in the early days. I never saw him reading a book. He's a very introspective person. You know, and he could just talk about any subject.
He read the newspaper, though.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to the radio.
They listen to the Irish Hour. Other than that, if he was listening to other programs, I never heard it.
So he wasn't listening to The Shadow or any of the
No. And he'd watch Jack Parr on television late at night. Well, 10 o'clock, whatever it came on. He got a big kick out of him. Mm-hmm. But other than that, with tools, we had an electric fan, one of these oscillators, 12, 18-incher. It was getting a little household dust on it, so he washed it down in the tub. He plugged it in and blew up. He was so disgusted. He put in an overhead light in the pantry for my mother with the chain, or you replaced the bulb. Mm-hmm. And the 3 screws that hold the bulb up there, he must have got a misaligned. My mother came in a little later and pulled the chain. The globe came down and hit her on top of the head and cut her head. He had to take her over to the hospital. Things didn't work out for him.
Did he ever have any brushes with the famous?
No.
Nothing you mentioned?
No.
When was the angriest you ever saw him?
We were standing on the street corner of Laverne in Ohio one day after a huge rain, and the corner drain, we had a rather high curb there. The drain there was clogged, and the water was out to the center of the street. He's out there with a broomstick upside down trying to clear it. Mm-hmm. 2 characters come roaring down Laverne going south. I knew what they were going to do. I ran. A tidal wave nearly knocked him down. I started laughing. I ran in the house, cursing. Oh, jeez. He's shaking his fists. He's drenched. I can imagine those guys were roaring all the way up to the Lake Street. Oh, the language. I went in and told my mom, I said, you can't believe what he's saying out there.
So he wasn't known for having a bad temper?
No.
In general?
No.
He's just
very laid back.
Pretty even tempered.
Yeah.
So he didn't swear much?
No. Rare. Yeah. No. That one day, the floodgates were unleashed. Whew. In more ways than one.
So you're living on Ohio. What's the address of the house?
5002.
5002. And it's got an apartment in the basement. It's
Yeah.
got an apartment upstairs. And your mom and dad are renting it out to folks.
He rented out the upstairs to Ole Munkfold. He was Norwegian old country, and his wife Ida. And the downstairs, well, people floated in and out of there.
Mm-hmm. You had no trouble with them?
Yeah, basement? Oh, yeah, he had trouble occasionally. In later years, yeah. He'd rent it to 2 people. Next thing 4 were in there. Mm-hmm. And it was getting them upset. Mm-hmm. They always left the screen door open. That'd drive him mad.
Because it looked tacky?
Yeah, maybe he was afraid bugs were going to get in there, but I think it just didn't look good to have the door flung open. Mm-hmm. He got very upset with that. In later life, he refused to rent it anymore.
Left it empty?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The house was paid for, obviously, at
some
point.
Oh, yeah. I think they paid $4,500 for it in 1935. Mm-hmm. And it sold for 18 and a half. What am I talking about? What did that place sell for? 21? 18 to 21, I forget.
21 in...
1,000.
What year?
1970.
So...
That doesn't make sense, though. Oh, yeah, I guess, because, the one on the West End Avenue sold that for 17, 18, I'm not sure. I forget so many figures.
Okay, so your mother, does she work?
Yeah, she worked, in the early days, she worked helping my father in a tavern. And when they closed that up, she went to work for Simpson Electric over in Laramie and Lake, assembling electrical instruments, soldering and what have you.
Like what kind of instrument?
Voltmeters, I think mainly.
Voltmeters.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's very
meters,
close to home. That wasn't that far away.
Yeah, it's probably 4-block walk.
Mm-hmm. She walked?
Yeah.
So I remember she worked as a telephone operator for a while, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, right. She had to work at the Merrimack Exchange. I forgot about that one. At Central and Fuller.
There's a big phone exchange there in Ma Bell.
Mm-hmm.
And she's an operator?
Yeah.
She didn't do that long, or?
I don't know how many years she was at that.
Did you ever complain about particular jobs? Or?
No. No.
Did her thing. She worked day shift usually?
I think she worked evenings. I'm not sure of the hours.
So you were left alone for a while, or is it just kind of...
No, I don't recall ever being left alone until, we started getting them at 12, 14 years old. We had a maid while my parents had the tavern. Mm-hmm. She couldn't stay with us, Mary Jones, older black gal. And she was very nice. She used to bake cake and all that stuff. I loved having her around. And that must have come to an end in mid-40s, yeah. So when the tavern closed up, my mom, of course, I was of an age then. I'd be, 14 years old, so they really didn't need anybody around. Mary Jane was 13, so my mom must have at that time gone to Simpson Electric. A lot of the women in the neighborhood would go there.
What was a typical meal around the house?
In the evening, we had a rather good meal, mainly for my father. Steak, potatoes, he liked all that stuff, which I didn't care for steak at all. I had the standard bill of fare. It might have been hot dogs or macaroni or Kraft dinner. Because I just didn't care for the full-blown meal.
What's the, did your dad smoke? He did, his whole life?
Yeah. Pall Malls.
What was the, earlier we talked about your dad and the angriest you ever saw him. What was the angriest your mom ever got?
Jeez. Yeah. I know she used to get irritated with me once in a while. I remember one time I must have been acting up and she slapped me in the face in the kitchen. I ran into the dining room and there's 2 bedrooms adjoining the dining room. So it was dark, and I ran into the diner. I was so mad, and I upset and all that. I threw myself into the bedroom where the bed was. She had moved it earlier in the day, and I didn't know it. I hit the floor full force. Big clatter of bones hitting wood. She's standing in the doorway laughing at me. It really got me outraged. Other than that, nah. I might used to get a little testy once in a while, with me especially. I've never seen her really go wild with temper.
So she didn't, and you and Mary Jane were pretty good kids. You didn't cause a lot of trouble for them?
I don't think we did. No.
I heard a story once about you jumping off a roof or something. And,
I used to do that with regularity.
For what reason?
Jumping off a roof. We had this old barn structure behind the house with I had a clubhouse in the upper area there. It was a severe pitch going into the next yard. And I used to make a big snow mound in the next yard on an angle, like a ski slope. And I'd get up at the high ridge of my dad's garage and go flying down across the roof on my sled and go flying off into the next yard. Other than jumping off her, I wouldn't do that. I'd go off it in a sled, though. Take a chance. Yeah, that was great fun.
What'd you do for work? Your first job?
I set pins at the Lorraine Arcade at Chicago and Cicero Bowling Alley.
Manual pin setting?
Yeah.
What's that job like?
Oh, God, it was really dirty. Every time a ball came back and hit the back cushion, and shake all the dust loose in the area, and end up on top of you. Mm-hmm. I did two lanes every night from about 6:30 till 11. There'd be 2 sessions there, 2 different groups coming.
How old are you?
I'd be 13 at that time, I believe.
What was the pay like?
8 cents a line.
A line?
Yeah. It was just,
How many lines could they get in a night? How many lines would you earn money for in the course of 6 to 10?
I think they did 30 lines.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the structure of it. It was a dirty job, though.
Did your dad want you to get a job, or was he was he?
Well, no, I don't think it was ever stated. Just a foregone conclusion. If you wanted some extra money, you just go did. I delivered the Austin News. I had a 4-block square area. I'd pick up the papers on Chicago Avenue, 4900 by the Symphony Theater. They had an office there, and I'd pick up. I had 350 newspapers, and I'd hand roll them and tuck them. Mm-hmm. And then later on, they started giving us rubber bands. That helped out a lot. I do that on Wednesdays. And I believe I was setting, I wouldn't be setting pins at that time. It must have been afterwards I did the pins. And I probably kept at that for a couple of years, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, maybe.
On a bicycle?
I had a bike, yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
So you did that. You did these 2 kid jobs.
Yeah. And I also delivered papers for the Sun-Times. In fact, I used to do a little traveling in the city with the Sun-Times softball team. It was a game I really loved. Mm-hmm. I could hit a ball out in the woods just virtually every time.
So for sports, what did you do? You say softball was one thing. Anything else?
Well, I tried some basketball at St. Patrick's High School, some football when I was in grade school. Didn't care for it. Of course, I always had to watch out for my glasses. For my father would have a fit if they got broken. So I drifted into softball. There wasn't too much danger there.
Mm-hmm. This is 16-inch softball?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really liked that game. You could play it on the side streets for the most part. Mm-hmm. We knocked the window, or I knocked the window out in the neighbors. Usually I could shoot them right down the row, right down the street. So I hit a neighbor's window one time. And I went up and spoke to them. They were very good about it. We all gathered some money and gave it to the guy.
So you played in a particular park, or? Parks,
mainly, but we used to go on LeClaire and Huron and shoot the ball south down LeClaire.
So you played in the street?
Between the houses, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was rather wide streets. Mm-hmm. I think it's the only time that I ever know of a window being broken.
Did you ever get hurt bad playing sports or riding motorcycles or car accidents or anything like that?
I had a Whizzer motorbike that I bought when I was 15 years old, unbeknownst to my parents. I had saved up $102.80, and that's just what the engine cost. I bought it at a bicycle shop in Berwyn. And I went home and I mounted it on the frame of my bicycle. It wouldn't fit between the framework, so I had to take an automobile jack and jack up the upper crossbar. Mm-hmm. And then I fitted it in, and I had a ball with that thing. That thing would do 45 miles an hour. I used to go shooting up and down Chicago Avenue with it, and go out to the forest preserves. What happened to me one time? Oh, I'm going down North Avenue one time, approaching Oak Park Avenue, going west. And there was a kid behind me on a really nice Schwinn bike with the knee action fork, where the engine fits right in. You don't have to jack the frame up. Jimmy Clare was behind me. We're riding along in the loose stones that get thrown to the curb area. And there's a new Cadillac in front of me, decides to make an abrupt right turn without signaling. I scratched that car from right rear fender all the way up to the opening of the front fender, and my bike was going under the wheels as he was turning, so I just let go of everything and flopped on the hood like a dead deer. I'll never forget the expression on that woman's face when I looked through the window. Oh, geez. And then I got off there. I'd torn my dress trousers. I really wasn't cut. Just shook up. I must have been in a state of shock. I picked the bike up. It was kind of heavy. and I did a swing with it and threw it off in the tall weeds. And the kid behind me bumped into the back of this guy's car and bent his fork. Still runnable. So I rode back. He gave me a lift back home on his. And by the time I got home, we had called his father. His father was real upset. By the time I got home, my bicycle was in the front curb with the front end all crushed out. His father must have came along and just dumped it in front of my house and left. I walked in the door. My mother's waiting for me. She thought I was dead. I'm all right. I'm all right. So I put the thing in the garage. And it was a big commotion that time.
You get in trouble any other time?
Broke a window in the neighborhood once. Mud ball. Accident. What else?
Police? Any
No,
with the cops?
no, never. No, never.
Did
occasional neighborhood fights.
that was common?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you remember about the Depression and that whole experience?
Nothing. I was born in '31. That was on the heels of it.
You were just too little.
Nah.
But your
I
parents,
know a lot of people that weathered that. It stuck with them all their lives, it seems. You know, a dollar was always a dollar, even though it might be worth 30 cents at the present time. They never got over it, the deprivation.
do you think that affected your house and how they handled money? And
Yeah.
how did they save money? Did they put it in a jar or what?
No, I never saw any coin jars or anything like that. I think they, ran to the bank whenever they had a few bucks. No, I never saw anything as far as them hiding money around the house or jars with coins. Never.
What do you remember about World War II? What about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, I remember it.
Where were you when you heard about it? Was it this day?
1941.
You're 10 years old.
I was 10. I was maybe fourth grade. I remember, the Japanese attacked, and it didn't, weigh on me all that much, and then I remember the day that Roosevelt died. I was standing over at Lamont and Walton with a friend of mine, and we had heard somebody come out and said Roosevelt's dead, which kind of made an impression on me because I thought he was a rather good president. He was very popular. Well, this fireside chats and what have you.
You guys would listen to them?
I had listened to him. At my age, a lot of it didn't make anything sense to me.
Did your dad make it a point to listen to him?
Yeah.
So he was a Roosevelt man?
I never heard him say anything against him, and he liked Truman too. A lot of people did. He was a really practical, down-to-earth guy. I felt really bad, when Truman went out of office because I thought he was it. Very plain-spoken guy.
Do you remember the atomic bomb?
Sure.
What was it? I mean, you're a teenager by then, so any feeling about it?
Well, it kind of scared me, and I said, this thing is devastating, something like this gets rolling, and they can kind of envision the end of the world at a very early age,
But everyone was happy that the war was over.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just with that shadow of now what's going to happen with this bomb.
Yep.
So do you know anybody that lost their life in the war, or were they pretty much an older group?
Yeah, I did. I went to school with this one kid. He's dead now. He died about 2 years ago. Eldridge Hersey, his brother was killed in the war. I remember we had a big funeral mass for him when I was still in grade school at the time.
Remember rationing?
Sure. Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. You get stamps. I think gas was 15 cents a gallon. It wasn't all that tough unless you're a major traveler. It was a tail end of it when I had my car, a 37 Dodge that I had. Wasn't that big of a deal. I could go out to Crystal Lake, Cedar Lake, whenever I wanted to.
Did every family get a certain amount of coupons? Or
Yep.
something like that?
Yep. ABCs, I believe they were listed as. But no, it wasn't.
Food, there was no problem with food? Getting butter?
No,
meat, or
not that I recall. Nah.
So the World War II ends, and it's the late 40s. What are you doing?
I was working for Meyercord Decal on 5300 Lake Street.
For who?
Meyercord Decalcomania, they call it. They made decals, and they put them in water, and the slide comes off. Mm-hmm. They also made, I worked in the Sanzarb division as a press boy. Sanzarb meaning without wood, wood without wood. They made big sheets of wood-appearing transfers. Mm-hmm. They put them on Rockola, not the music man, Rockola jukeboxes, Wurlitzers, mm-hmm. all had this wood grain tone on it. Mm-hmm. And all it was a transfer that we had made.
Mm-hmm. So you're working in a plant that makes that stuff?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Press boy. Moving stuff to and fro, cleaning up the presses after they're through with a certain color run.
So you're working with chemicals?
Yeah, butyl, ketone, acetone, all of it.
You wear masks or anything?
They never knew anything about masks at that time. Mm-hmm. You go outside in the fresh air, you'd start passing out. Mm-hmm. It's just a whole different environment.
You just dealt with it.
Yeah, right. You're just so steeped in it. Mm-hmm. It was in your clothes. It was in your system. But I know whenever I used to walk outside to leave in the evening, what was this fresh air? Yeah.
Like sniffing lighter fluid.
Yeah, right.
So you did that. What was it? What did it pay?
85 cents an hour.
And what hours were you working?
7 to 3:30 from what I recall. And there was times if we had some heavy runs, we'd be working around the clock or a night shift. I've done that too.
So you did a year at St. Pat's and you left after freshman year?
Yeah.
Why?
I wanted to get a car. I really wasn't that interested in school. And that's when I went to work. I went to work for Meyercord. It was the first job I believe I had when I was out of high school. I stayed there 3 years. I left there. I noticed a lot of the old-timers were coughing and hacking like mad. I said, I think I better get out of here. Mm-hmm. Oh, matter of fact, I got my hand caught in a printing press there one night. Mm-hmm. Oh, phew. I'm washing down this cylinder and it had ceramic ink on it. And if the solvent dried, it got real grabby, and I had this rag in my hand. So I sloshed her down to keep it wet, and I got this inch button sending the cylinder around to clear out the engraving. And I got that cleared down, and there's a roller about that diameter that transfers ink up to the plate. And you lever it down so there's a gap between it and the plate. And I had wet that down, and I wiped halfway across, and I hit a dry spot while I'm inching it and pulled my hand right into that was terrible.
Cut it up? Right
up to here. Well, my hand was around there, and I had a rag in it on top of it. Mm-hmm. And I must have really been hollering. The pressure was tremendous. So there's a huge flywheel on one side. Well, the one guy went to loosen a lock nut that drops this roller out, and he had to get a long screwdriver and get in there and try and fork, because my hand was trapped in there, and pull the skin off both sides of my hand when he moved the roller. So I had bad dreams for about a year on that one. My hand was totally swollen.
And this is with all the chemicals in the cut and everything?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I didn't even think about the chemical part. It was just the crushing that got me.
But no broken bones?
And they didn't break. So, cartilage matter there. Mm-hmm. If it had gone a little further, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that common to get people get their hands caught
in
these things?
No.
But there was really no OSHA kind of protection?
Oh, no. I'd been working long hours. I was tired. Of course, you get a little high on the fumes. You were in a hurry. They want to change over to the next color. Mm-hmm. You're washing it down. Then I hit a dry spot with a solvent had dried, and I'm inching it like mad, trying to get going. Boom. Yeah. They were going to back the press up, but this big flywheel, my fingers were swollen like hot dogs already on the other side. I said, geez, don't do that. Mm-hmm. So they pried it out, and the roller dropped. I caught the roller before it hit the pan. Force of habit, you don't want to get any nicks in the roller. Yeah. But it transfer to the engraved plate.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, that was awful.
You went to the hospital?
Yeah. I went around with my arm in a sling for 2 weeks, maybe.
They pay for it?
I don't recall. I think they did.
So.
That wasn't the preeminent thing in my mind at that time,
So you worked. So this is Meyercord.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did that for a while instead of going to high school.
3 years.
And then you joined the Air Force. Why?
Why? Because I knew the draft was coming up, and I didn't want to go someplace I didn't want to go to.
You mean Korea?
Well, no, I didn't want to go in. I didn't think about that all that much. I didn't want to go in the Army, Marines. I went to the Navy recruiting office. The place was so crowded I couldn't get in there. So I went over to the Air Force.
Why is the draft being reinstituted? Just because of Korea?
Yeah, right. It was just percolating at that time.
So you joined the Air Force just out of default because you didn't want the other ones to sound pretty bad.
Right. And I also, in the back of my mind, says I'd like to survive these years also.
Mm-hmm. You thought that was the best chance to survive was the Air Force?
Yeah, and it was a mechanical thing also, I think, in the background there. Planes, very appealing, what have you, working on various vehicles and what have you. And as luck would have it, they took me in.
So you thought, so by this time you're already working with your hands a lot.
Oh yeah, since the age of probably 10.
So you like to build things and fix things.
I bought a kickstart gasoline engine from a kid around Madison and Laverne. No, not Madison. Madison and Lockwood. I'd gone to high school with him, and he had a kickstart engine. I think it might have been a 2 or 3 horsepower. So I gave him, I think, $12 for it. And I brought it over to a friend of mine's house on by Augusta Boulevard, and he had one of these antique fire engines, a big one. So I put it on the back of the fire engine with a belt drive pulley to the back wheel. Mm-hmm. No clutch. So the way we got it started, I'd pull it behind my bike until it fired up. It was direct drive. When it first fired up, it roared forward and smashed my back wheel up. So after that, we just pushed it down the alley to get it going. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was always interested in that stuff.
So you're working with your hands, you get into the Air Force. Do you look for a particular specialty? Or
I wanted to go in the motor pool.
Motor pool, because you worked on engines there.
Yeah, I would have known vehicles, vehicles in general, whatever happened to come up. And I ended up on airplane general. There's so many guys in the motor pool, I guess, wanted to go into the motor pool, and they were loaded, and they needed aircraft mechanics. Mm-hmm. So I went into APG, airplane general, and then they selected me to be a hydraulic specialist. And they sent me to Chanute Air Force Base to take the course. I think it was 3 months.
So in your military career, you had basic where?
Randolph Field, Texas.
Randolph Field.
Lackland for maybe 10 days, then to Randolph for my actual basic.
Mm-hmm. And from Randolph, you went to Chanute?
And now from Randolph, I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in San Antonio, or Wichita Falls, Texas, for 6 months.
Sounds like a boring place.
It was. All of Texas, really.
And you go to Chanute.
It's the only place you can stand up to your knees in mud and have the dust blowing in your face at the same time.
So you go to Chanute for hydraulic school.
Yeah, 3 months.
And from there, do you get any choice of where you get positioned, where they put you?
Well, at that time, I was stationed at McCord Air Force Base, Tacoma, Washington, working on C-124 Globemasters, the big planes.
So they're fairly new in the fleet at that time.
Oh, yeah. I think they come out in 50 or 51. And they sent me to, I'm trying to recall. Yeah, they sent me from McCord to Chanute, 3 months there. And then I went back to McCord and working on C-124 hydraulic systems. And then my Aunt Mamie died, shortly after I got back to McCord. So they're about ready to move our entire outfit down to West Palm Beach. So they let me leave a little early, and I stopped in Chicago for a 10-day furlough, funeral type thing. And from Chicago, I went up to West Palm Beach and checked into that base.
Any adventures? What's it like to work on a C-124?
Very big plane. Douglas Aircraft has a lot of hydraulics on All their movable surfaces are hydraulically powered. Their brakes are powered. Their landing gears are hydraulically actuated. Flaps, everything, rudders, ailerons. Very heavy in hydraulics. About the only really big trouble we had, once in a while you get an airlock on an engine pump. They had Vickers, 2 Vickers pumps, 9-piston pumps on each engine. One at 3 o'clock, the other one at 6 o'clock.
On all 4 engines?
No, the 2 inboards.
2 inboards.
Mm-hmm.
2 and 3.
And once in a while they get airbound. It was no big deal. I just go up there and bleed them while the engine's running, which was tough. Because you're hearing.
You're behind the...
I'm sitting in a saddle right behind the engine, 28 cylinders.
Things running. You wearing hearing protection?
Didn't have any hearing protection. They didn't know anything about it. We usually deaf for about an hour after you climbed out of there.
Mm-hmm. Was there a position to sit in, like a saddle kind of a thing? They planned on guys sitting there.
Oh, yeah. Just forward of the gear, of course the gear is down, there's kind of a metal saddle you sit in, and you lift up this door, and the back of the engine's right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And the pumps are over here at 3 and 6 o'clock. And if they're having trouble, I just bleed the lines. I don't hardly ever recall having to change a pump. Of course, the lubrication was always there with the hydraulic fluid.
Mm-hmm. So, did you go up in C-124s very much, or?
No, I was up once. That's all I remember.
Why?
They call it Operation Santa Claus. I think that's the name they gave it. They were going to, at Christmas time down there, they were going to load up planes and drop the guys at central locations in the United States so they can get home for Christmas. So they dropped me off at Wright-Patterson. Mm-hmm. I remember when I got on that 124 in Tacoma, they had a huge pile of parachutes sitting on the deck there on the first level. And I told us, go up, grab a chute and size it to yourself. So I did. Here comes this kid up the ladder. I knew he was brand new. His fatigues hadn't been washed out or anything. He still had that olive dream color. And he grabs a chute by the ripcord and opens it up in the plane. Oh, gee, it was awful. Some sergeant there, he says, that's it, you can't go. We got the exact amount of chutes. I thought the kid was going to burst out crying. So they got him off the plane, and they got into the supply warehouse. Somebody was there, and they gave him another chute.
Wow.
Anyway, I remember this plane was so huge. They dropped down the second floor. It would come down like that. Mm-hmm. There was 200 of us on this plane. And we're doing our power checks at the end of the runway. And he had the brakes on, of course. You could feel they're hunkering down in the ground. All of a sudden, he let go of the brakes, and we're hurtling down the runway. Just about liftoff. One engine kicked out. For an instant, I broke out into a sweat. I said, this is it. We made it, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I landed at Wright-Patterson, and then I got a train out of there to Chicago.
So you're working on C-124s. Did you, any emergencies you were involved with?
Oh, God. The one that nearly turned my hair gray, one night I was in charge of the specialist shop in West Palm Beach. We had instruments, props, hydraulics. But I was in charge of dispersing these guys to various planes as they came in. And I got a call from the tower. There's a 124 overhead. Can't get the wheels down. 5 guys and their crew members. They used to do touch and goes in the area. And I thought, oh, geez, I think I was 20 years old. I said, oh, remember what you picked up in school. So I kept my cool. I told him, I started with the simplest stuff first. I says, pull the emergency release. Didn't work. There's a button you press. It didn't work. What was that third thing? Anyway, I was down to my last and final solution. Worst case scenario is just what this was. Through a series of cables and pulleys going from the high cockpit down and across and down into the basement of the ship was the P compartment where all the hydraulics are. And also there was a right and a left door to climb out inside the wing. or shinny out inside. Well, the cable comes by the door, and there's a pulley there, and there's a hole drilled in the wall there going out to the wheel wells. I said, send somebody down there with a pair of good gloves and the cable on the right going through the wall, have them snap it real hard. Don't open the door, and just grab the cable and give it a snap. And that goes to an up lock. On a 124, when you go to drop your wheels, the up lock has a hydraulic cylinder on, and it pops the up lock open and lets her fall, bumps its way through the doors, and comes down and locks in under its own weight. Well, and of course, you got the rush of the wind with it. The up lock was not releasing. The hydraulic was gone, whatever happened there. So you had this cable backup. And when he pulled a lever in the cockpit, all he did was take the slack out of the cable. It didn't do anything. It didn't actuate. That's why I told him, I said, you got to get downstairs with a pair of good gloves and grab one cable and snap it. Ba-boom, right gear came down and locked. Go to the left side, snapper, ba-boom. I'm like, I was awake all night. Honest to God. They figure if I had failed, plane would have come in on its belly. Probably would have been a major fire. Who knows, explosions. And there's 5 guys in there. Yeah, I think I was only about 20 years old.
Did you get any kind of congratulations on that, or?
Nobody said anything.
Ugh.
It's okay. It's okay. I felt good about it anyway.
So you worked on 124s. What about any other
C-97 Stratocruisers.
Stratocruisers which were used for fueling? Or?
Later on, they were used for in-flight refueling. Yeah, we used later on. We got some with the booms on the back. That bunch merged with us. They came in from Texas. So I was just strictly 124 mechanic, and then we got some new CO in, and he wanted us to work on all the planes, regardless of their model. So I worked on 97s also.
Anything different between the two?
Oh, major difference. Hamilton hydromatic props with an oil reservoir behind them. They gave a lot of trouble. Westinghouse electric brakes. Never had too much trouble with them. We had one C-97 went off the runway and hit a storm culvert. And one of my friends, one of my associates in the specialty shop, had been working on the brakes. Now, on a C-97, you got 2 overhead handles that you pull for brakes, right, left. And the pilot's excuse was the brakes wouldn't hold. That's well, that told me a story right there. You don't use the brakes on a runway roaring in. Just don't do it. You reverse your props. Then it struck me he came in too late down the runway and he couldn't stop regardless of what he did. In a panic, towards the end of the run, he hit the brakes and slid off into the storm culvert. And that's the way it was resolved. Pilot error.
What about B-29? Did you work on them?
Yeah, early on. It was just maybe school squadron stuff. Big time oil leakers. Oh, jeez. The rocker arm covers were leaking all the time on them.
These are older airplanes.
Oh, yeah. They were 10, 12 years old when I was working on them at Randolph. It was a big adventure going in there, though. I'm standing in the bomb bay one day. Doors open. I was brand new. I was like in, 3 months? So some old sergeant came by and he says, if you hear a hissing sound, jump up in the air instantly. Otherwise, you're going to lose your legs. They were compressed air. I guess they closed in an instant. We had sleeve locks on them, though, But if somebody's fooling around up front and hadn't hit the wrong lever, gone. Yeah, that was kind of scary.
So
I did a little work on B-25s also.
Same kind of work, just hydraulics and.
Well, that was school squadron stuff. Okay. So we just started your procedures. That's about all it was.
So older airplanes again.
Right? Oh yeah.
Okay, so you're working on these airplanes, and you've been moved to West Palm Beach, been relocated, you've been repositioned.
From McCord to West Palm Beach, yeah.
To West Palm Beach. And what's the name of the base in McDill? What's the name
Palm Beach International WPAFB, West Palm Beach Air Force Base.
WPAFB, is that the site of the current international airport now, or?
Yeah, it was. Half of it was military and half of it was international.
Oh, okay. So it was a mixed-use civilian military field.
Sure.
And in the course of this time, you meet Mom. How's that go down? How's that happen?
I was working at a Sunoco gas station as a part-time job, and your mother came in with this big old Cadillac. We started shooting the breeze.
She was filling up, or what?
Yeah, I think she got $1 worth of gas.
Is that all she had? Cadillac takes more than $1 worth of gas.
Oh yeah.
So she comes in, you shoot the breeze with her, and then what?
Started going out. Oh, what the heck?
So her father's recently gone.
Yeah.
Recently deceased.
Yeah.
And you're dating her. She's the only person living at home at that time?
No, her sister Margaret was there.
Margaret was there?
Yeah.
So you date, what did you do for a date? I mean, what was a typical date back then?
Go to a drive-in. There's a movie there? Yeah, there's a drive-in movie there. Or go to a drive-in cafe. Just drive around. Nobody had any money.
So you eventually get married, and you move in at Grandma's place.
Yeah.
Where, upstairs or in the back?
No, in the regular apartment for the same floor as my parents.
No, I'm talking about in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. We lived upstairs, and then Granny Waters had a big, substantial garage back there, and they made it into two efficiency apartments. It's kind of nice.
So you lived up in both places, or you lived?
I lived upstairs, and then I lived in one of the efficiency apartments.
What was the rent?
Oh, gee. What was I making? It was mainly poor wages. I forget what I gave her, 25 or 40, I don't remember.
What was your rank?
Airman First Class Buck Sergeant.
Okay. So you decided not to re-up. Why?
No. Well, I didn't care for the regimentation. It wasn't that bad, and the Air Force is probably the least of all the branches in the military. I figured, well, I can do better than this, and I want to get back to Chicago and get a good paying job and all that.
But you didn't have a line on a job in Chicago.
No, I wasn't worried about it. Really. They tried to talk me into re-enlisting for a month before my time was up. It drove me mad. And this one captain, I says, I'm going back to Chicago. He says, there's soup lines in Chicago. I said, I'll stand in them. Yeah, they really put the pressure on me there.
Any brushes with the famous while you're in the military, or high and mighty?
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Charlton Heston, Jan Sterling, Paul Douglas.
Going through West Palm Beach International, or what?
No, they were at the Palm Beach Playhouse, which was across the bridge where the Welty lived, and they used to put on dress rehearsals. And we were invited to go, so the day before the show, I'd be sitting right in the front row. And they did Born Yesterday. Judy Holliday, and Charlton Heston was the highly educated next-door neighbor. Paul Douglas played her self-made millionaire husband, very rough type guy. And who else they had? I didn't see it. Billy Burke, I think, was there, and Edward Everett Horton. And Peter Lawford used to use the tennis court right over by your mother's old house when he's going around with Pat Lawford across the bridge.
Across the bridge in Palm Beach.
Yeah. Who else? Jimmy Stewart was supposed to show up at the Boca Raton air races. He had a P-51 Mustang. We kept an auxiliary fire station there at Boca Raton, about 20 miles down the road from West Palm Beach Air Force Base. And our planes would take off and land there, do a touch and go. We had to keep a fire station there. So it was, they were going to have the Boca Raton air races, and anything you wanted to race, bring it there. They didn't care what it was. Planes, cars, motorcycles. So I heard Jimmy Stewart was going to be there. So I had a 41 Chevy, so I got 3 or 4 of my pals. We all rode down there. And his plane was there, and we stood there for about an hour waiting for him to show up. He never did show. We were really looking forward to meeting him.
How'd you know it was his plane?
I was told he was going to be there with it.
Did the plane have a name on it or something? Or?
I don't recall. I know it had a leaky cylinder on the wheel flap door. I was going to tell him about that. I went in there to the office there, and there was a lieutenant or captain wanted me to broadcast the show. Mm-hmm. I said, is that an order? He said, no. I said, well, I'm just here. I don't want to broadcast. I just want to walk around and take in the show.
Mm-hmm. Radio?
Yeah.
So you never saw Jimmy Stewart? You saw his plane?
His plane. We stood there like 4 goofs waiting on him. Who else? I saw Pat O'Brien at the corner estate in Madison one day. That was many years later.
Mm-hmm. In Florida, you're recently married, you're making dirt money.
Oh, terrible.
You're living in a garage apartment.
5.5 days a week.
How wide was that apartment, that garage efficiency?
It was probably 12 feet wide.
12 feet
It wasn't
wide?
bad. It was a very nice setup.
How long was it?
The length of an average garage door. You had a living room, no dining room, bedroom area, washroom. It was probably 22 feet, maybe a little more longer.
22 by, what was the other, 12 you say?
I'd say 12, yeah.
22 by 12 with a bathroom, a bedroom, and a living room.
Yeah, right.
And a
You have to go outside to change your mind.
So you're doing
Not
that.
enough room.
Your mom is up in, your dad is, and your sister are all up in Chicago.
Yeah.
And you decided Florida's not for you, the Air Force is not for you.
There's no money. Yeah, I wanted to get out of the Air Force. I figured 4 years is enough. Mm-hmm. And almost a turning point there where Grandma Waters was watching this old man there. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, he's related to a military or something?
Dad Gates, they called him.
Yeah.
Well, your mother-in-law was friendly with the Mr. and Mrs. Gates in the early days, and Mrs. Gates was very ill, and she died. And prior to that, she asked Grandma Waters if she'd keep an eye out for old man Gates. And what she said she would. So he got real bad, and we ended up taking him into her house. I used to talk to him once in a while. I'd go in there and shave him every 3 days. And every once in a while, he had run off and had deserted the family in the early days and became a cowboy in, I believe, Montana. And he didn't come back till much later in life when the kids were all grown up. Mm. One of his kids went off in the 1918s as a private. He received a battlefield commission. And that was Byron Gates. And he rose to the rank of Major General, and he was in charge of Chanute Air Force Base. Mm. He used to send money every month to Grandma Waters to take care of old Dad Gates. They didn't last that long, really. And he died, and she notified him, and he came in and landed at my old air base where I had just been discharged from. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I believe I went and got him. I had the old Cadillac, too. And I took him to the Colonnades Hotel in Palm Beach. Very fancy.
So you're a civilian, but you're
I'm
still
civilian. I just got out.
Yeah.
I just got out, yeah. So on a Friday night, we got a phone call from him from the hotel. He wanted to come over to the house and watch Jackie Gleason, which was on Friday nights at that time.
So they had no TV at the hotel?
I guess not. So I went over and got him. It was funny. I talked to the girl at the desk. I says I'd like to get in contact with General Gates. So I used the house phone there. She gave me the room number. So he picked up. He said, hello. I didn't know how to address myself to him. I said, General, this is Pete. I couldn't use my last rank, you know. Yeah. So he came down, went over there, and he gave me the greatest re-enlistment talk I've ever had. He was going to make me an instructor at Chanute, give me staff sergeant, the rocker. I was really tempted, really. I says, how do you expect me to get down there? I just go in the recruiting office and tell them I want to go to Chanute. He says, tell him to call me. You'll be here. I told him, right. Absolute power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a big kick out of it.
But you resisted anyway.
Yeah, and after the funeral was over, I took him back to the base. And some military policeman was at the gate. Sometimes they just wave people through. He decided to select me to give me a rough time. Mm-hmm. And he starts with this gibberish. And the general's right next to me in civilian clothes. And he just leaned over. He says, "I'm General Gaeta." The whole place went up for a grab. It was a great feeling. I looked in the mirror. This guy's on the phone already in the shack there. Mm-hmm. They started running at the airfield at the other end. I said, wow.
To get ready for the guy.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. That was a fun time.
This is the guy that I have a diaper incident.
Oh, geez. Oh, he roared and he laughed at me. Yeah, right. They called him Hungry Gates. That was his nickname.
Yeah.
He only lived a couple years after that.
What did he do in World War II? Do you know what his posting was? Or?
Well, World War I would have been his battlefield commission.
Okay.
Yeah. World War I. I'm trying to think of the time frames there.
Well, I don't recognize the name.
Oh, no. He thought that was a lot. Mrs. Waters used to call him Brig. He was a brigadier general for a long time. Well, I got to call the Brig.
Okay, so you bail out of Florida. You pile your stuff, what you have, into a car.
Yeah.
And drive north.
41 Chevrolet, yeah, 2-door sedan.
So you go and you move in with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
In one of the empty apartments or in the actual house?
In the actual house, yeah.
How did they take it? How did they,
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
They're all right with Mom?
Yeah, sure.
So you're in one of the spare bedrooms?
Yeah.
One of the 2 bedrooms.
There's 3.
There's 3. One's in the back porch.
No.
You're right. Yeah, there's 3 and there's one.
Yeah, right.
There's a
Yeah,
room
right.
in the back porch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is always cold in the winter.
Yeah. Amen.
So you're living there and you immediately start looking for work.
Yeah.
Where do you find a job?
I went to work for Continental Can on North Ave in Cicero. Production expediter.
What's that mean?
Worked in an office setting up can making schedules for the various presses. It's an office style job.
Did you know somebody to get in there, or a friend of a friend?
Yeah. My dad knew somebody from what I recall. And that lasted for a year, and then the price of steel went up. Mm-hmm. Let a lot of people go, and I was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I went to work for Glidden Paint Company.
You know,
on Laramie.
Did somebody?
Yeah, again. Yeah, right. Another Irish guy. Yeah.
Your dad knew?
Yeah. So I went in the maintenance department there as an oiler.
Maintaining, what do you oil?
Oh, electric motors, machineries, chains, whatever moves and needs lubrication. I was all over the place. Mm-hmm. Oil cups, grease fittings. Yeah, I did it all.
Is that the place that Glidden, did they use soybean as a part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember hearing about you coming home smelling like soybean.
Oh, it was terrible, yeah.
You were wearing a jumpsuit kind of a thing, or overalls, or?
I think I wore overalls to that place with the stuff that get on your shoes, and after a while you wouldn't even notice the odor. Get so immersed in it.
So you did that for a couple of years?
I think I only did that one for a year. Then I went to work for Jewel.
What happened with the Glidden job? They lay off, or?
No, I just left it.
Couldn't stand it.
Yeah, right.
So you're out looking for work while you're working at Glidden, and
yeah.
Did you always try and find a job before you quit one?
Oh yeah. And I went to work for Jewel as a clerk.
How'd you get into Jewel?
I just happened to step in. I figured that's a good. They'll always need groceries, There'll always be a job there. Mm-hmm. So I went in there, and they hired me right away.
Doing what?
Grocery clerk.
What's a grocery clerk do?
Just about anything in the store, mop up spills, stock shelves, anything. Putting up window bills, filling the milk case. They're all over the place.
Was it like 1958 or so, or 7?
56.
So you're doing that. Did we have a TV at home at that time?
Yeah, we did a small one. I think it was 12 and a half.
Where'd you get it? You go and buy it or someone give it to you? Or?
I think my mother gave me her old Sentinel. And I had another one, Zenith, kind of a rounded thing. Yeah, there were small stuff. We've gone through so many sets, I forget.
So you got 2 children. You got Jim and me. You're working at Jewel at the entry-level grocery clerk. The money that it paid, was it considered okay for somebody with
It was
kids?
barely tolerable.
Like what?
I don't remember what the salary was. 1956. I think the most I ever made there 10 years later was $140 a week. What the heck was it?
35, 40 a week?
Oh, no, it was more than that. But I don't remember what the wage scale was at that time. 140 at the end. It was probably 100 a week, I think.
So you're doing that. You're working at Jewel. You working any other jobs at that time in the 50s?
In the 50s? No, I didn't have time to work another job. I was going to college at night.
You were going to where?
Wright Junior.
Wright Junior?
Yeah, and Austin High.
Why'd you go back to school?
I wanted to get my GED, so I went to Austin High for a year. Mm-hmm. I was valedictorian of my class. They thought I was a genius. Because I don't understand.
And then you went to Wright for a bit. Went to Wright Junior College, too?
Yeah, 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So,
but because of my good schooling in my first 8th grades in parochial school, I was 2 to 3 years ahead of anybody at Austin High School. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this stuff was so easy, I could have stayed home.
So you worked during the day, you went to school at night.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't home a whole bunch.
No.
And when you were home, you were exhausted.
Yeah.
Did you do anything recreational? Did you play softball?
No time.
What did you do on the weekends?
Well, I was probably working at the stores. I mean, they had kind of a... Yeah. Later on, they went to Sundays, and they staggered our work week. You really couldn't get too deeply involved in the manual labor aspect. Didn't leave you too much starch in your spine at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, you weren't that ambitious when you left there. Mm-hmm. It was really invigorating, you know, and you learned a lot of people skills there and organizational skills, too. So
you worked at Jewel doing various tasks up through the ranks, grocery clerk, you work in the butcher shop or something? No. I was produce manager. In fact, I was produce manager of the year 1 year, matter of fact. I had it up here somewhere. They selected 20 guys from the entire chain, mm-hmm. and I was one of them, got produce manager of the year award at the Edgewater Beach Hotel. Mm-hmm. They awarded it. And then I became a night manager later on. So you're working shift work. You're bouncing back and forth. Well, I was on nights, produce during the day, and then when I went to assistant manager and night manager, it was all night work. Mm-hmm. And that night work is like 2 to 10, or 1:30 or 1 to 9:30. 1 to 9:30. Yeah. So you'd get home at 10, 15? Well, not always. All depending on how much of a huge load you got in. So you're unloading trucks? You had to get it all up. You're unloading trucks? Yeah, I helped unload them. We'd pull them off the conveyor belt and stack them in their proper commodity group. Then we had to price mark them, cut the boxes, stamp them, put them on hand trucks, and get them out on the shelves. In those days, prices were hand stamped. Oh, yeah. Oh. So you set your little dial and yeah. Every one of them. Sometimes on a Thursday, I'd get 2,000 pieces in, sometimes more. Mm-hmm. They all had to be processed. So you, no matter how late it took, you worked on it. So you might get home at 1 in the morning. Oh, that's happened too, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. So you're doing that, you're not doing anything else other than working, going to school, and sleeping. No time. And eating. No time. Mom's raising 2 kids and then 3, mm-hmm. Mary Ellen. And then you decide to move. Why? You were living at Quincy. What was the address on Quincy? 4938. What do you remember about that apartment? Well, I know we had a major flood in there one day. I liked it, the parking was a problem around there. You had to park in the street. Oh, yeah. I only worked 2 blocks away at the Jewel at 106 South Laramie. That was handy. And then they moved me to another store. Where did I go from there? Laramie?
106 Laramie. Where'd I go? I forget. Oh, I think Laramie and North. 5227. I was all over the place. 6054 Belmont. 2919 Harlem Avenue. 5713 Chicago Avenue. Spent a little time there. Mainly on the early north side.
So you're managing, you're a night manager as this 60s.
Some of them I was, yeah. I used to go floating around during the summer doing a vacation relief. I was different places every summer.
So in the 60s, you're working exclusively at Jewel in the mid 60s. And at some point, you get fed up with it, or you for some reason you stop working at Jewel.
I could see it was a young person's job. Yeah.
And by that time, you were 35.
This is when I left, yeah. I gave him a week or 2 weeks notice, and I left.
You had no other job?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Sure.
The city?
Yeah.
Was the job physically demanding? I mean, it just wore you out, the Jewel job, and mentally, physically, emotionally?
It was a very stressful job, really, you know. Now it's starting to get to me. I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I figure I better move on. Because I didn't feel there was enough room to expand, you know, ever upward. So I left.
And you got the job at the city through a neighbor?
Yeah. Jim Kelly, I believe, was the one that helped me with that one. Told me where to go, you know, where to sign up, what have you. Yeah, that's what I did.
What's going on at home at this time? I mean, we've got a house on West End. What was the address?
5667.
How'd you pick out that house?
It was cheap. It was roomy.
Was it messed up when you?
Yeah. It didn't need a lot of work. Mainly cosmetics on the inside.
You did them all? You did all the fix work?
Yes. Yeah, I believe I did everything I could do in there anyway. They had to have a little roofing work done. Somebody else did that one.
What was the neighborhood like? I mean, when you moved in there in '59, what was it like?
It was pretty nice. The only thing that I didn't like was the apartment buildings that close by. And I thought it was very pleasant. We had that big grassy strip out in front of us, so I liked it. Really. Would have been happy to stay there the rest of my life. But frame buildings require an awful lot of attention. You've really got to keep at it. And I didn't have, big extension ladder. Everything seemed at that time to be a lot of trouble. So, what was it, 1959?
You went to West End in '59.
59. And then 68 or 69, we got out and went to the north side. I think 68, July of 68. We moved up there.
Still in the 60s, what do you remember about let's talk about history a little bit. What do you remember about the Kennedy assassination? Where were you?
I was working on the Jewel on 6054 Belmont. Everybody was stunned at that time, of course. You know, disbelief. You know, what could you do?
Do you remember where you were during the Apollo landings on the moon?
No.
69?
I never paid any attention to it because I thought it was impractical. I couldn't really see the point of it, so I just ignored it.
Now, we moved out of the West End. We moved off of West End in 1970 or so, I think.
It was 68 or 69.
Okay. Why did we move?
It was time to go. The house needed too much work. I wanted to get up north.
Neighborhood got dangerous?
It started getting dangerous around there, yeah. Yeah.
You concerned about our health?
Oh, yeah.
Kids?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any attempted break-ins or anything going
Well,
on?
there was pry marks on the back door one day. I figured, well, this is it. Well, this happens, you know. So I made a concerted effort to get out of there.
And you found the house up on the north side.
Yeah.
At this time, you're working for the city. What was a city job? I mean, what was your first city job?
I was a janitor in a building, yeah.
Which one? Which building?
Wow. Murphy, on 3500 Grace Street, I believe.
What's Murphy, a school?
Yeah.
What's involved in that job? What's a typical day like?
Well, at 3 o'clock you go around, so you have a section, two floors of rooms. You dump the paper into a big trash barrel. You go in and sweep the room out, pick up the residue, put it in the barrel, go to the next room, and then you sweep the corridors, and then you do the stairwells, your own assigned stairwells. It was okay. It was not complicated at all.
Day shift, night shift?
Usually jan jobs are, a lot of work is after 3 in the afternoon. You usually have a day janitor there in the morning to open up. You might have an extra guy come in to help with the lunch hour. But your main group will be there. I think most of them would be lucky if they were done cleaning up their section by 6 o'clock or 6:30. So they're into their early evening hours. So whenever I got through my section, I'd go work on plumbing.
Did you know about plumbing at that time?
Yeah.
No one actually taught you about plumbing?
No.
By that time you kind of...
Well, I worked on plumbing and hydraulics, you know. To me, it's all the same. There was one washroom, that was my assignment, had 32 commodes in it. 4 rows of 8 in each with the old pull chain. Anyway, the engineer was showing me my assignment. I opened the door with like Niagara Falls and everything was leaking and running over, and I thought, oh, wow. So each evening after I got through my circuit, I climb up on top of the tanks with a work box and fix the leaks, or if the seals or the pump bodies were worn out, those brass upon rubber, and if it was leaking a while, it had what they call wire draw on the metal brass seated, cut right through it, and it continued to leak. So I didn't have any replacement parts. These things were so old, they were late 1800s. So I took the whole valve out and I put a file between the jaws of a vise, and I'd run this cut brass there till I smoothed it out and knocked the burr out of it. Put it back together with the new rubber disc. Beautiful. After 2 weeks, you walk in there, you didn't hear a drop of water going. So I enjoyed that stuff.
What was good about that job? Its simplicity. It was, you could see the beginning, middle, and end of a job.
Yeah, and you know, you had the closure at the end of each day. You know, on most jobs. Yeah, I did that, and I did this. Look at that. You know, I finished this. Yeah, it's rewarding.
Secure.
Yeah, I worked on gas engines, lawnmowers, and snowblowers. Yeah, it was all right. I really liked it.
So you start off as a janitor. At some point, you get a promotion. And you take another test, or
yeah, I took a test. Yeah, fireman's test.
And a fireman does not put out fires.
No, he's boiler fireman. He creates fires.
Boilers being boilers to heat the school.
Yeah.
So how are they fired? Is it?
Well, in the early days, it was by coal. And then they had some that were oil plants, oil fired, and then they converted over to gas on virtually all of them.
So you worked on all of them?
Yeah.
Coal?
I didn't work. Oh, I did work on all. Yeah, I did.
Because I remember shoveling coal once.
Sure.
Last time, too.
Yeah, great workout. Really.
I don't know if you're trying to give me an object lesson or what, but it was miserable work.
It was really invigorating. It was good.
So you're working at, I remember May School. You worked at a place called May School.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Harrison and Laverne.
Harrison and Laverne. And you're a fireman there?
Yeah.
Same stuff. You still work. You still fix things with your hands, but you're also involved with the boiler.
I didn't have time unless it was a warm day that I couldn't get away from the boilers. I had to be in constant attendance. So, keep the pressure up, keep the water flow correct.
So it demanded monitoring.
Yeah, I had to be there, and if we had a holiday or something where there was nobody in the building, then I'd work on the machines.
I didn't know it had to be watched.
Oh yeah, it wasn't automated at all at that time.
Are there a potential for them exploding?
Yes.
Any ever explode?
No.
Not in your watch.
No.
I mean, anywhere in the city has one ever exploded.
I didn't hear of anything during my time working there. Of course, you always hear some sort of that happened when and where, a big explosion. Could have been in another state.
Like urban legend.
Right, now.
I'm going to change tapes.